Cool. How's it going? Did you have a good week?
Oh yeah, really good week. Yeah, been planning a bunch of events, really more than anything else. But yeah, it's Thursday and time for the mastermind. So um, I know last week we had a few people are out, and it looks like people are busy once again. I have had some requests, so I'll kind of get into this topic before we get started. But I've had requests even from previous coaching clients. I talked to other coaches. We're trying to get some events planned because I guess this is that time of year where things slow down and everybody wants to get things going. But a lot of it really boils down to goal setting. Like everybody's like trying to figure out like what happened last year. And I don't think it was that big a deal, but I saw it coming. So I wasn't like freaking out. And as I was telling people on the team, like last September, I believe, like let's start focusing on new builds. This NAR lawsuit's going to have a way bigger impact than people think. Everybody kind of blew it off and treated it like, well, we'll deal with it when it happens. And now the people that were telling me that last year were like, it's interesting. Like I remember you talking about switching over to luxury and new builds. I distinctly remember you putting together training for luxury and new builds. And as you were talking, it's like, yeah, whatever, no big deal. And then those same people reached out to me last week and earlier this week, and it said, can we get together and you work on your goal setting or goal attainment plan with me? These are some folks I did this was like a couple of years back, and they haven't done it in a while. And I think they're now realizing like, maybe there is something to this. Like, well, there's a lot to it. Like it forces you to think. And I think that's the part where people don't realize it's not just about the actual getting the meeting together, having the conversation, and just putting the plan. It's think about all the thoughts that go into it. What does it make you think about for the next year? How do you, even though you're putting all this effort into it, what does it make you think about down the road? Because in order for you to set goals, you got to be thinking about down the road. And I think that's what people started thinking like, well, no, I'm on autopilot. My business is working. And you've heard me say this before, but there's ups and downs in the business and you have to anticipate them. Someone asked me, I think it was like a couple of days ago, but they were like, I want to hear more about the seasons and the cycles. And I'm like, yeah, that's actually a very pertinent thing that we as realtors have to be able to explain to clients. And if you're not really good at it, that explains a lot of the times why people don't know what to say during their presentations when it comes to the objections. It's not, your presentation may look great, but if they ask you something that's not in your presentation, your answer has to be about the seasons and the cycles, because that's typically, especially on the listing side. I mean, I get so many questions about, well, if my house doesn't sell in December, what would be the best time to sell it? Well, I just tell people the truth. It's, well, typically houses sell for the most between tax day and Labor Day. So anywhere from usually beginning of April all the way through about Labor Day. So typically August, if you put your house on the market at that time, that's the season where homes usually sell for the most. Doesn't matter whether the market's up or down, it's still going to sell for the most at that time frame. And then people are like, oh, so that's the season for listings. Now, the season for getting the best deal on new builds, usually guess what? September, October, November. So I always tell people set up for December to remember. So there's a season for listings. There's a seasons for pre-owned. There's a season for builders. There's a season for pre-foreclosures. There's a season for when the leads are going to get the best results. Like a lot of people don't realize, like OpCity, Zillow, Premier, all those folks are set up during listing season. So when all the homes are listed, they're grabbing all those leads from the listings and sending them back out to everybody. And that's where they get the majority of their leads. So people are like, well, I wasn't getting any during that part of the year. Well, the people who are actively listing homes and taking those leads usually slow down in November, December. And that's when Zillow, Premier, that's when OpCity and all those folks will say, all right, since we don't have as many people actively doing this, let's send them out to the people who are maybe more junior, not seasoned. That's your opportunity to take those leads and show them that you can convert them. And now that you're getting these in that off season, so to speak, then when the on season comes, they're going to send you more leads because you've shown them that you could actually convert them. And so if people are going, well, I didn't understand that's how this business works. Well, that's how it works. So when you're planning, and you're trying to set your goals, and you're thinking, well, last year I did X, Y, and Z, and I got stuck during this part of the year because I had this game plan that I was going to do, let's say pre-foreclosures. And then all of a sudden your pre-foreclosures stop and you're like, uh-oh, I don't understand it. Is it not working? Well, it probably will. In 3 more months, it'll probably pick back up again. But during that 3 months, you're struggling and going, oh my God, I don't know what just happened. Well, that's why you need those other options. And so I try to tell people to have at least 4 to 8 different things going at the same time. If you're in a niche where you already mastered like yours, you're like, hey, I get consistent leads. I get consistent listings. And that's where you want to be. But a lot of times, especially the folks that haven't figured that out or haven't found that niche, then it's just easier to figure out what 4 to 8 you need and understand that it's going to change seasonally. And then cyclically, you have to understand when you're explaining to your clients, hey, the market determines what's happening, not me. I can't tell you if you're going to get multiple offers on your home unless the market starts doing that. And then when the market starts doing that, that's exactly what's going to happen. And people are like, so a good question came up. I think Rod asked me, like, how do we know when the prices of homes are going to change? Are they going to start skyrocketing? Because the unfortunate part is there's so much fodder on the internet, Facebook, Instagram. All these folks just put out these little lame comments, like when the interest rates go down, the prices of homes are going to go up. And it's lame. I hate to say it, but that is the most lame thing you could ever say to anybody. The homes don't just, there's not a direct correlation. It doesn't, the interest rates drop, boom, the houses just went up $50,000. But this is what you're hearing. This is what you see. The lenders are telling people that. I started reading them because after Rob, I was like, I see why he's asking that question. If you're a new agent in this industry and you keep seeing that, and these are folks trying to reach out to the consumers and say, hey, when those interest rates go down, your house is going to go up. So you're going to lose money if you don't. Either way, it's like, that's not even close to true. The value of the home doesn't change until the appraisals in that neighborhood change. That's it. And that's going to take a while. That takes an entire season for that to happen. So cyclically, home prices don't change until the season changes. And I should say a whole cycle. So one whole year goes by. So when listing season goes by, check what happens during listing season. Are people making multiple offers? If they're making multiple offers, I can almost guarantee you, yeah, the home prices are going to skyrocket. So is there a correlation for when interest rates comes down? Yes, because that means more buyers are going to enter the market. But it still doesn't change the fact that listing season won't be until April. So even though the prices came down, are the interest rates still going to be low come next April? If not, all this was just a big bluff. And so I know when I'm listening to Robert and those guys talk about that, I'm like, I mean, I'm not going to say I'm smarter, but I'm not going to say I'm less smart either, because I've made predictions since 2009 and been spot on every single time. I look at different factors and they might explain it differently. And, sometimes we're right, sometimes we're wrong, but more often than not, I've hit it on the button. And so I'm like, no, there's always going to be seasons, always going to be cycles. The cycles last about 4 to 8 years. Some of it is political. They say, well, I don't agree with that. Like, I promise you during election years, yeah, it matters, especially presidential election. The other parts of the years, it's hard to say, but it all kind of rotates between 5 to 8 years if you're paying attention. But with all that being said, I know we're in the holiday season coming, and I know a lot of people are like, hey, what can we do since our businesses are slowing down? And I think this is the education I want to share with people, talking about the cycles, the seasons, and guess what? Goal attainment. How do you get ready for next year so that you can do what I call it an audit of your business. Basically, when I go through the blast off acronym, we already know the B is for build your brand, L is lead generation, A is appointment setting, S is signature attainment, the T is transaction tracking, and then it's the O, optimization. How do you optimize your business? What were your best practices? Check your ROI. You want to see exactly what was going on with your business and learn how to, as we talk about, rinse and repeat. Now's the time to start thinking about all the things you want to rinse that didn't work for you. Maybe substitute another lead generation platform that wasn't working for you. Try a different strategy that you haven't tried and replace one that wasn't working for you. And then the best practices you have, double those, triple those. You're going to notice everything that you're doing that works. If you do more of it and less of the other stuff, you free yourself up to do that and gain more ground that way. So, but that's the focus I want to have, for the rest of the year. And I hope, everyone kind of sees the benefit of that, because I know we're going to see people slowing down on the mastermind. But hopefully That makes sense. Anything you want to add? What do you think about all I just said, Tanya?
Well, I thought of something and then I forgot about it.
Oh, sorry.
We talked about something else. I think it had to do with the seasons, but anyways, it'll probably come back to me if it was important. Can't remember now.
Yep. Dealing with listings or I think most of the stuff was goal setting, listings, different lead generation platforms, stuff like that. But I don't know if that'll jar your memory. But what do you think? What do you think overall? Have you noticed the same thing in your career this time of the year? Most people are slowing down and trying to figure out exactly what to do to have a better year.
Oh yeah. Yeah, totally. It's always like you're saying, the seasonality never changes. That's just how it is. March, April to September. That's basically what we can expect. That's why now is the slow time and the time to get into, like you mentioned, goal setting and everything else. And I just remembered what I was thinking about. It was on the interest rate side of things, how people are talking about, if the interest rates go down. But the interesting thing is interest rates have come down and nothing's changed. No more buyers have come into the market, nothing. Like, it's been radio silence, which we were not expecting, right? We're like, "Oh, interest rates will come down, things will change," but nope, nothing's changed. So, I wanted to
And
add to that because you were
and
so right about the appraisals too.
yeah. And so the crazy part about it is, again, without buyers coming into the market to purchase, the season doesn't change until this time next year. So there's no guarantee. Now, you can tell what's going on in the market by watching the builders. That's why I tell people, be a new build specialist, regardless. I mean, even if you don't want to sell a ton if you don't want to represent a lot of buyers, which I know a lot of listing agents don't, I would highly still recommend that they work with builders. When you are going to go work with buyers, take them to builders first. And if they don't want to buy a new build home and you're like, I'm not going to show them 15, 20 new pre-owned homes, not doing it. Then I would be like, yeah, if you're a listing agent with a team and you want to hand those off, I personally, if I was going to focus on listings, would be like, I'm going to show them new builds if they want to buy a house and sell. And if they say, yeah, I don't think new builds are going to work for me, let me set you up with my pre-owned agent. That's literally what I would do. I'm going to take my 25%, let my agents have the 75%, and I'm sure they'd be happy to do it because you need the practice. But if you become a listing agent, you really don't want to ever go back to doing like pre-owned homes because, man, does it take so much more time. And everybody's like, but you can make more money. Honestly, you make more money with new builds. But I'm not going to walk away from a client that doesn't want to do new builds if they have, they're pre-approved and all. But if you don't have the luxury of having a team, that's the option. You have to show them new builds first and then say, all right, I'm going to switch over to pre-owned if and when they say new builds is just not the right option for them. But no, you're 100% right. It boils down to all the stuff that they predict doesn't really mean anything if you're not paying attention to basically the cycles and the seasons, because it really doesn't change. Like exactly what you said, the interest rates have come down and nothing changed in the market. Now everybody's asking why. Like this is a political thing. I mean, I know everybody doesn't want to get into the debates and all that stuff. I watched the vice presidential debate, and I'm gonna be honest with you, I wish those were our candidates, but I'm just gonna leave it at that. They explained way more about their platforms, parties, and what they're going to do than either of the actual candidates, which is crazy to me. But after listening to them, the only reason I'm even bringing it up now is because of what you just said. Listening to them, that's exactly why no one's in the market buying homes. A very simple question. How were you living 4 years ago compared to how harder it is to live today? When they put that post on Facebook that showed the Walmart receipt from the guy that said, I just placed the same exact curbside order that I placed 4 years ago that cost me $118 and it now is $416. That was it. That's why no one's in the market. You can't even think about buying a house when you can't figure out how to feed yourself or your family. And so if the economy doesn't make some adjustments, I don't care which party is in, if they can't make these adjustments, we're going to stay around the 4 million homes a year that Robert keeps saying is way too low, right? We should be around 6 million. Well, if you can't get more buyers to buy homes, it doesn't make any difference because they're like, I can't afford it. I can't afford to move into a home. And people are like, well, it doesn't seem like it should be that big a deal. It's not about, I remember when the foreclosures were happening a few years back in the 2008, 9, and 10, a lot of that had to do with like someone driving a Cadillac. their payment's $500 a month. I can tell you right now, when those arms started coming to the point where they had to start the fixed rate portion and their payment went up $200 or $300, they're not giving up their Cadillac. They'll foreclose on the house. They're not giving up their Cadillac. I'm telling you what I saw over and over and over. It was just crazy to me how people were like, why would people lose their house? Because they don't want to lose their freaking Cadillac. I'm not going to lose my car. I give up a house too. I need my car to go back and forth, especially if you're still working 9 to 5. You can't give up your car. And people are like, oh, I guess that makes sense. But when you listen to lenders, and of course I was one of the lenders, I'd be like, you guys are, I mean, you're just greedy. You're hungry. You're upset. You're trying to, well, don't they realize they're just throwing their money away on rent? The payment's going to stay the same. I'm like, no, that's not even true, because every time they get a tax increase on the property, every time the property is appraised higher, they get taxed on them. So their payment isn't going to stay the same. Not unless you're a disabled veteran at 100%. And they're like, man, you're just being, I'm like, yeah, I know. I'm just being real. I'm sorry that bothers you. But no, I think you're absolutely right. And I think, that's a great place to start today's call. I know I see a lot more people in the live stream today, which is good. There's people here. That's a great thing. And I think Sherry told me she has somewhere she has to be. So I think she decided to check into the live stream instead of going up her numbers today. I don't see Rod here on there either, but he put out the numbers. Like I said, even if it's zeros, I'd like to see them, because at the end of the year, I can actually take the spreadsheet, separate it for each individual person, and send out your numbers so you can see where your strengths and weaknesses are. Then we do have Lakeisha here. I see Brianna filled out some information as well, but she's not on the invite on the stage. So the only person we got for today, it looks like, is Lakeisha. So we'll bring Lakeisha up and go through that. And I know you got some other things going on this week. If you want to walk us through all that, that would be good. So we'll bring Lakeisha up. Hey, good morning,
Good
Lakeisha.
morning. Good morning. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I was just really having a ball going over those seasons, because I had a hard time trying to grasp when the seasons are. So, but I took notes, so I'm glad we went over that again. I picked up 2 leads from my sphere of influence. They were both rental leads, but still I like to turn those into buyers. But unfortunately, these 2 leads here one is going to remain well, both of them are renters. The one renter called me. It's like they found a rental, so they don't need me right now, but she was like, in the future, I'm definitely going to reach back out to you. So I'm going to keep them in my keep them on my list of people to keep reminding that I'm still here.
Yeah.
So, and then the other one, I'm just helping with a rental. They don't want to own right now. So no pressure there. But yeah, so my week has been full, trying to get ready for this buyer seminar I'm hosting Saturday. So just been going over all of that, trying to get that together. And I want to continue to do these buyer seminars. I think that plays to the part we were just talking about the seasons. I believe if I keep doing those on a regular, that something is going to stick there, right? Mm-hmm. And those that come out, they get to know who I am, see my personality, and I follow up with them, and I believe eventually we'll have something, in the future.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, and I think what you're talking about is literally what I want to try to impress upon everyone every time I start with a brand new agent, or even one that works with me when they first get started. And it's a snowball effect. I think people don't understand that. They feel like, well, the first time I do some event, it should be this massive turnout. It will be nice. Like when I do my events, I can pretty much tell you 30 to 40% of the people are going to show up to my events, but I have a list of 15,000 people. So how the world do you get list of 15,000 people? Well, that's literally the trick. Build a list, make an offer. Build a list, make an offer. Build a list, make an offer. You got to keep building lists, building lists, building lists. So someone says, well, how would I build a list of homeowners? How would I build a list of potential home buyers? Well, if you guys don't know, I'm going to add Valerie Wilshire's information, independent title. We can get you a list of up to 3,000 names for $25. So I went ahead and did that, and They end up sending me way more because she's like, they want me to break it down 3 times. I tried it, and I was like, I didn't know it was like 9,000 names. It ended up being about almost 4,000. But typically they want it to be about 3,000 names. They're going to tell you how to go into the CRS and your MLS to find the list first, and then send it to them and say, get these, skip trace these for $25, which is amazing. You can get a list of names and let them skip trace them for $25. 3,000 names is great. But think of it as a strategy, just like I teach with open houses. I tell someone, you do an open house, the first month that you do one, you're like, not very many people showed up. Okay, so you do one the second month. Well, are you going to do the same thing the second month you did the first if nobody showed up? I hope not. So then you add a little bit of something else. You go do some research, you do some due diligence, you go check out, you're like, hey, I watched a video about how to fill up open houses. And then that month you try that stuff, it doesn't work. You're like, oh goodness, all right, I got 12 of these I got to do. So I don't want to come to every open house every month and no one show up. So by the third or fourth month, you're like, I've talked to this person, tried this person. I'm going to go talk to a couple of lenders. I'm going to talk to someone who says they do really well in open houses. Maybe I can get other people to help me co-sponsor. And then boom, by the third, fourth month, you're like, I can't believe it. 8 people showed up at the open house. And you're like, now I have all these skills, but it took you 3 to 4 months to do that. That's the snowball effect. Now, exactly what Lakeisha's talking about. We got 8 people that found out about you in your open house, found out about you in your home buying seminars, and they go, well, I got a lot of information out of that. Well, again, you take your cold leads, move them over into your sphere of influence, your book of business, and you keep marketing to them as not just potential clients, but as part of your marketing army. They're the people that if you get used to this conversation over and over, and I know a lot of it's language, and I think that's where it's hard for me to convey that part. Because people are like, when I get involved in sales, they're like, well, it seems like you just know exactly what to say. Well, if you don't have any sales training from your past, you're right. It's not the same. But if you do, you understand that little things I used to say to people from network marketing, it would always be, do you know anyone? I never started with the first party approach. It was always third party. Hey, do you know anyone? I'll tell you guys what I used to do when I was network marketing. People were like, you never run out of referrals, JJ. It used to be the phone card business in 1998, just to give you an idea how long I've been using this technique. They're like, you never run out of referrals. How is that even possible? I'm like, because I don't even ask for the business when I meet them. And they're like, well, how do you do it? And network marketing is exactly like, LPT, EXP, when they have these downlines. And I was like, well, I'm not going to ask you about getting into business. What I'd like to do is share with you what I talk. Do you know any pastors? Do you know any organizations that have large congregations that I can get in front of? They'd be like, absolutely. I'm like, okay, well, let me show you what I'm going to present to them. And then you tell me what you think. And they're like, okay, so I said, just give me a list of the people that They give me a list of 5 names. I said, just give me 5 people that you think, might be interested in lowering their phone bill. Okay. And they have congregations I can get in front of. Yeah, I got my pastor. I got this organization I go to. I do this group. I do that group. I'm like, okay, cool. All right. Now let me show you exactly what I'm going to be explaining to them, because I want you to know before we go talk to them. And they'd watch me go through and they go, how do I get involved in that? Oh, well, if you join, I can put you in front of them, and then all of those will be added to you. So you can wait, though. You can wait till I present. And once they say yes, then I can add you. Then we can add them under you directly. We can do that. Yes. That's exactly what we do. So I would always have so many. By the time I leave, I'd have, even if they said they watch the business and go, I don't think that's for me, still had 5 referrals. And so everywhere I went, I would say I had 30, 40, 50. I had like a list of 100 people. And I'm like, it's not a cold call list anymore now, because I can call them and go, hey, your friend Lakeisha said that you're interested in potentially lowering your phone bill, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, so my downline grew like crazy. And everybody's like, this is ridiculous how fast you go downline. But it was just my third-party approach strategy, and it works all the time. So how well will it work in real estate? We'll see. Unfortunately,
it actually works, Julian, because it's funny you said that. That was exactly my approach. I was car instead of door knocking yesterday, I was car hopping yesterday from the different cars. I handed out 40 flyers to 40 people that were sitting in their cars. And my approach was just that. Who do you know who's looking to buy? I'm having a buyer seminar on Saturday in this community, and I want you to know. So in that, I ended up picking up a person that wants to in the future sell their home and buy another one. And in fact, it turned out to be, she's actually on my, she's part of the PTO, and she saw me around, around the school and everything. And so it's funny because when I gave her the flyer, she said, yeah, I'm actually looking to buy some acres and a home. I want to sell my home and live out in the country and everything. And so she asked me to go to breakfast with her this morning. I told her, I'm sorry, I have an engagement already, so maybe we can go to breakfast another time. But someone else was like, hey, you know what? I am looking to buy. A lot of them like, I already have a home. I just actually bought a home 3 years ago or a year ago, but I'm going to pass this information along to my family members and friends. So that was, yesterday was good.
Yep. And that's how it works. And if you have a moment where you can schedule some time to sit down with them and just like, hey, I don't know how much you understand about, and I'm just thinking of this as I'm talking about, how I used to do these third-party marketing. If I was talking to someone and if I were to set up exactly the same way using the home buyer seminar, exactly what you're talking about, it's like, hey, if you have a few minutes, I'd like to run this by you and see what you think. And then they're like, well, what exactly is it? Well, I'm looking at doing a home buying seminar. I know you probably already own a home. You're probably not in the market to help sell. So I help disqualify them so they don't feel any pressure. But I'd love to get your opinion on it. And if you happen to know a few people that it would be a great to invite this to, do you mind sending me 3 or 4 people's names and their email, and then I can forward it out to them? No pressure, because if they don't want to show up to the home buying seminar, they won't show up. But I think if once you see what I'm presenting, if you think it's worth sharing, do you mind sharing it? And then you go through it just like a presentation, just like I would when I was network marketing, just like I do when I'm at my events. I'm going to share that information, and they go, oh, I actually do know 3 or 4 people that literally would benefit from this home buying seminar. And if you're not doing one, if they're not able to make this one this Saturday, are you able to do one later? Well, even if they can't make it Saturday, I do have a presentation I can share with them via video, or I can put them on my mailing list and catch them up whenever I'm doing these down the road. So as long as you know that, again, you're the community expert, and I see this is a concept I'm hoping everyone understands. When you know you're the community expert, it's not hard for you to think of this stuff. That's why I was saying when we do the goal setting, you start pre-planning stuff, and it starts forcing you to think about other ideas down the road, which most of us know as brainstorming. So just like what we're doing right now, if you're everybody who's watching, I see we got a pretty big crowd on the live stream, but the truth is we're brainstorming right now. So if you think about what we're talking about, these are all ideas that piggyback on other ideas. And as you're thinking, like, well, I know Tanya would think, I'm not really the buyer presentation person. Well, what about home seller workshops? That's not a bad idea, right? So you can take these conversations and brainstorm and come up with bigger and bigger ideas. So if someone is saying, well, I'd rather do listings or sellers, but I want to see how you structure this entire thing. So I want to piggyback on your home buying seminar just to see how you structure it, just to see how you can get people to show up. Now, I will tell you, based on the numbers I've seen with realtors showing up at my events, I need a list of 15,000 to get 30 people to show up. 15,000 to get 30 people to show up. So if that's the case, what if I needed 15,000 homeowners to get 30 homeowners to show up? Well, I already know where to get the 15,000 names from. So going back to that list, if I purchase 3,000 names for the year, that's 36,000 for the year. 3,000 names, 3,000 per month times 12 months, 36,000 names. Now, if you don't think your business is worth $25 times 12, which is 300, to get 30,000 names, then you only have yourself to blame. And you're like, where do I get my list from? Because here's what you're going to find out about that list of 30,000 people. Some of them are going to want to buy homes before they even think about selling. The numbers that we hear on a regular basis are basically that for every person that has a home to sell, 40% of them are thinking about, actually, out of the ones who have a home to sell, 40% of them are thinking about selling it. So if you have a database with that many names and 40% of them are like, yeah, I own a house, but only 40% of them are thinking about selling it, well, now you got to convince them to sell it. Maybe they don't want to sell it, maybe they do. But those are some of the things you can think about, but get the list, build the list, if that makes sense. Anything you want to add, Tanya?
No, I think the list is so true. Like that, and direct reach out is gonna help you get people to show up. I mean, Lakeisha is story about car hopping. That's a brilliant idea. So that was at the car, like at the school pickup, or where was that?
The school pickup. I went to two. Actually, I went to two of the schools that was around me. School pickup.
Oh, wow. So it wasn't even your own kids. That's great.
It was one. Well, my daughter used to attend that elementary school, and now she's in that middle school. So I just went to both of the schools
Smart.
and
Yeah,
walked the line.
There you
that
go.
was great. I mean, it's the best way to hit multiple people at one time, right?
Yep. Yep. I
Yep.
hit 40 people.
And some of
Yeah.
the other ideas I used to have, and so again, brainstorming, some other ideas I used to have was like, what organizations are out there that you can go talk to the head of a committee and be part of it? One of the easiest ones I used to find was the health field. You go to the any hospital and find out about their board, when do they have their meetings, and then find out if they'd be open to a home buying seminar. And a lot of them are going to be like, well, what do we need to learn? So the thing that's interesting is when you decide to go through with this, you will force yourself to do the due diligence. So I'm like, well, shoot, now that I got a date picked out, what do I want to talk about with physicians? Well, there's a physician's loan that is zero down. So I went and became a specialist on zero down physician's loans, even though other people were like, I didn't even know those existed. Well, when you're doing exactly what Lakeisha's talking about, hey, I just decided to be creative. I need to do a home buying seminar. I picked a date. And now that I picked a date, how do I get the word out? So now those opportunities start to present themselves. But that's also the law of inertia. That which is in motion stays in motion. If you get out there, you tend to pick up more business. But I was just talking to Lakeisha about this the other day, and the honest to goodness truth is, guys, I'm gonna tell you, if you really want to be successful and you want to be good at goal attainment, it's all about setting a deadline. You got to pick a date. And I'll give you a story on what just happened to me just 2 days ago. I was working with Mandy, who's the owner of Succession Title. And we talked about 2 months ago. They brought me in. They're like, we love your program. We're going to do, for all of you guys who attended, the dynamic speaking and leadership training that I put you guys through. They want to attend it, and they wanted me to bring a few people. I said, I can only do like 12 people because it takes so much time, unless I have a couple of days where I'm able to grade everybody for their 5, 10, and 15-minute speeches. There's no way we can do this. So for 2 months, they've been trying to find a place, and they found all this other stuff going on. She had a escrow officer that took some time off, and a bunch of other stuff she was telling me about. But we set a date, and then she called me out. She called me 2 days ago and said, I'm sorry. I know we're supposed to do it at the end of the month, and we never got back to you. I was like, all right. She's like, so what do we actually need? I said, well, I can't even set up the Eventbrite until I know the time, the date, and the location. She's like, really? I'm like, yeah. She's like, so we need a date and location ASAP. I'm like, if we're going to market for a couple of months, we need the date and location now. So I need a deadline. I need a date, an actual date. So she stopped. She's like, when do you think will be good? She's like, December's not good for me. I said, it's not good for me either because we're going to be doing a lot of goal attainment and goal planning for the rest of the year. I said, so usually January is when everybody slows down. They're coming out of the holidays and they're actually looking forward to doing something again. And she's like, really? I said, first week's not so good. Second week, still probably a little bit of rust that needs to be shaken off. So I said, probably the third week of January. She looks at her calendar. She goes, what days? I said, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. She's like, 16th, 17th, 18th. I'm like, yeah, let's go 16th, 17th, 18th. Oddly enough, I was already set up for an event with Valerie Wilshire over at Independence Title off of I-10. So I'm like, it's kind of a drive, but it's a great location. And I'm like, she called up and she says, would you be willing to do it over at Stone Oak? I'm like, of course. She doesn't know I live 5 minutes away from the location, but I'm like, yeah, of course, that we're great. But it's actually in the same parking lot with Thrive Mortgage, and it's my insurance or my group insurance or something like that, my insurance group. As I go in to set up my computer, because I'm like, I don't know the audio visual setup over there. And I'm like, even though it's a week from yesterday, I'm like, that's okay. I'm going to check it out. And then I meet the owner. He's like, so what exactly do you do? Are you like the tech guy? Or I'm like, or you do the training? I was like, yes. He's like, okay. So you do both? I'm like, yeah. He's like, so what classes do you train? So I told him like, well, primarily I do commercial leasing, new build, become a new build specialist, limited listings, et cetera, et cetera. And he's like we're always trying to get this place filled with training class and all that. I'm like, really? I said, are you able to keep this place open on a Saturday? He's like, I'm pretty sure. I'm like, are you absolutely sure? He's like, I'm 100% sure I'm the owner. I was like, oh, okay. So he's like, I own the building. So yes, I can get you whatever I want. I'm like, we need a space for the 16th, 17th, and 18th. He's like, let me check the calendar. All yours, man. We got a BNI group that Thursday that clears out at 10:15. But if you want it at 11 until the rest of the day, I said, perfect, we'll take it. But if I hadn't set the deadline, this wouldn't have even been in my head to ask him that question. When me and Lakeisha were talking about setting up her home buying seminar, I said, just give me the date. As soon as she gave me the date, now all these other thoughts start coming into your head about what you need to do to fulfill your obligation. And that's what I want everyone to understand, how important, not just setting the goals, but having a plan and a schedule with your deadlines. The most important part about goal attainment is absolutely setting the deadline. Now, once you set the deadline, pick the date. You can say, I want to make $200,000 a year, but you should be saying, I want to make $200,000 by December 31st, 2024. I want to make double that in 2025. So by the end of 2025, December 31st, I want to have made 400,000 or whatever your goals are. But you got to have a date when you make those goal setting promises to yourself. And I can promise you, when you do, you will have much better chance of accomplishing them, because again, as you're hearing, not only are you going to brainstorm, when you're going to run into other people, that's where the law of attraction and the law of vibration get together, which I call basically the law of manifestation. And you have to have both for that to work. And I think the number one thing is setting a deadline, because it forces you to do those other things to make it happen. So if anyone benefited from what I was talking about, hopefully everyone did. But I'm hoping everyone understands that. And Tanya, what do you think? What do you feel about manifestation, all that crazy stuff that I pick on people about it, but I know there's a place for it?
You're absolutely right. Actually, I was just watching a webinar yesterday, and the lady said, like, I'm just going to put it on the calendar because it's going to manifest itself when it's on the calendar. Like, it has to be something that I'm going to be working towards. Like, if it's not like they're happening, it's not going to happen, right? So that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm putting stuff on the calendar and making it happen, whether I'm ready or not. Like, it's gonna happen.
Yep. And once you put it on the calendar, it'll force you to see the timeline too, because you'll be like, man, I thought it was only take me 3 weeks. It took me a month. So how do I know how long it takes for me to go through my list of 15,000 people if I want to fill up a room of 100 people, like we did at D.R. Horton a couple of years back? I had to start running that list about 2 weeks earlier than normal. Normally it's like a week I can get 30 people in a room, but I needed 100. So I ran the list 3 times. And then I also said, I'm also going to send it out through text messaging. So I had to pick up a text messaging app, because I knew people were much more, the open rates on text at the time were like 88% versus 20% on emails. So I need more people to open it in order for them to click the link and sign up for the Eventbrite. But over time, you learn these things. If I didn't put the date, I wouldn't have even bothered to do any of that stuff, because that wouldn't have mattered. I'd have been like, oh, well, we'll figure it out when the time comes. But the time's not going to come if you don't put it on the calendar. So I always say a goal without a date or without a deadline is just a wish. So everybody builds their wish list. And I'm like, let's stop doing wish list and start doing goal attainment, which means date first. Pick your dates with your goals. And I think everybody benefits from that.
Yeah, and I'd like to add too, like, make sure that it's consistent also. So you can't just do, one home buying seminar, home selling seminar, and never do it again. Like, if you can do it consistently, like every month or every other month, then people are going to expect that happening, just like you do with your trainings every month on Wednesday, right? What is it, like the third Wednesday or something?
Yep, every single month. And I wish I had a steady location. That would be the benefit of having a training hub, because man, like the way, if you guys don't know Pat Hayes, the way Pat Hayes grew the San Antonio EXP team was every single Friday, whether one person showed up or 15 people showed up, he had his EXP explained over at Stoneworks every single Friday. And I remember going there sometimes and it would be 25 people in there already signed up with EXP and not a single guest. But we did it anyway. And then onesie twosie here and there, people start popping in, and eventually it's like, hey, San Antonio in Texas, they have the largest group of EXP agents in all of Texas in San Antonio. And the next thing you know, you're hearing Pat's team probably 5 to 8 years later, 1,000 members. He's making over $100,000 a month just from his rev share. And people are like, is that real? I'm like, I know Pat personally. It's real. So, it's no joke. He used to send me all of his commercial clients. He's like, I don't know shit about commercial, JJ. You take them. So, but I'm telling you, yes, you're 100% right. Be consistent, and people will start to look for you, and they'll start to see you as that community expert. So that's also why YouTube channels want you to be consistent. You know, even if it's just once a week, if you get used to doing once a week, what I've noticed, I've signed up for my own channel just because I didn't even think about it. But every time a new video comes from StreamYard, when we do this and I post it, every week I get an update. Hey, check out this video from Dynamic. I'm like, who is this? I'm like, oh, that's me. So I'm like, if people are signed up for my channel, they're going to get an update every time I do a new video, at least once a week. So I'm like, the algorithm works literally by the same way you see these things pop up. But how do you get them to subscribe? Okay, so now that's a whole nother conversation. But if you set the goal, set the deadline, and you're like, I want to get 10,000 followers by the end of the year. It's 10,000 subscribers. Okay, huge goal. Give it a shot, see if it works. And then exactly what you're saying, if you plan to do this every single week, every single month, you'll start noticing what works and what doesn't. And that's when you start looking at your best practices, rinse, repeat, follow the problem solving metrics. And that's when that starts to change. So, all right. So I think I see a comment in it says private chat. Oh, Lakeisha's like, yeah, I was an attendee. I was like, yeah, there you go. All right. And Brenda says that's smart. Yeah. So I think that was back when we were talking about using a third-party approach. All right. So I'll wrap this up today, just going over where we are in the 52-week mastermind. For everyone who's curious of, what's happening and why it's happening, I went to Champion School of Real Estate yesterday for the first time in a long time. And I had my roster almost completely filled up with half the people in the room wanting to do an internship, because they asked me, like, what would internship consist of? So I said, well, first off, if you join the team, this is what would happen. If you're part of my team, you're going to get all this. And I said, once you get through all of that, then the big thing I'm going to do for you is teach you how to use this platform to market properties. Now, they had no idea what this platform was, but everybody here should. And I said, so how would you guys feel if you left real estate? I said, so I'm sure I'm going to read everybody's minds in here. They were like, you sure? I said, I'm going to read everybody's minds in here. They're like, all right. I said, I bet every single person in this room is going, now that I've finished real estate school, now what? And they're like, yeah, that's exactly what we're thinking. I'm like, right, because you didn't learn any sales or marketing training here, did you? They're like, I said, so where are you going to learn that? They're like, that's a good question. From all the brokers that came in, they're telling you about their sales and marketing. Well, no, they just pitched us on their, their brand and how good they are, this and this. I said, well, I'm going to show you how to market right here, right now. And so I opened up this platform and I just went over here and I said, what if I could show you without even having to think how to market a listing? You get your first listing or you borrow someone else's listing, and I show you exactly the steps that it takes to market someone else's listing without even having to think about it. And I'm talking about 100 points of listing marketing strategy without you having to do anything. They're like, okay. So I opened this up and I said, see this button right here? This is market listing. That's what you got to push without having to think about it. They're like, okay. So I pushed the button. Of course, you guys know what it looks like on the other side. But I'm like, if you don't know anything about Instagram ads, that's okay. The system does it for you. You don't know anything about social media posts? The system does it for you. And they're just like, this is crazy. I'm like, it may be, but it works. And then social media post. So I was like, it does this for you. They're like, wait a minute, it already generated the ad. I'm like, yeah, it's already here. And I don't even know who Mickey Scott is, but looks like, I think Sherry marketed this to get some leads. Not bad. Or maybe someone in the office. So she borrowed someone's listing. But you can, if it was your listing, you can share it on social media, get e-flyers for the sellers, tell the seller that, hey, here's a link so you can share it with your Facebook page. Here are the nearby home letters. So I went through and I just showed them all these different options on how to get the word out. I even showed them the short form video script. I showed them the single property website, how they could do all these different things all the way to, traffic report and YouTube listing video. And they were just blown away. Now, in my mind, this is how every single person should be taught from day one when they come out of real estate school. And of course, I asked them all, like, if someone had this available to you, would you guys be like excited to jump on board? I said, yeah. And my team gets it for like $30. And they're like, you're joking. I'm like, well, some of them were. Some of them were like, I don't even know what $30 means in real estate. I'm like, you'll soon find out. Like $30 is super cheap compared to what else you're going to be spending. One person, I was like, some of them, if the brokers give you leads, it's a 70-30 split. They're like, oh, that's not bad. So we get 70, they get 30. I'm like, no. It's like, no, it's the other way around. Like Zillow Premier, some of these brokers are going to give you a 70-30 split. You get 30. I'm like, but it amazed me how many. And I said, when there's another one that does like Zillow Premier, and they're like the number one broker for Zillow. I didn't tell them the name of the broker. I said, but the number one for Zillow Premier, it happens to be Levi Rogers Group. He's number one from my understanding, and he charges 70%. Number two is Devin Resendez's team, Emory Group, over at Heritage for KW. He charges 60-40. But they're like, oh, those aren't bad. I'd rather do the 70-30. I'm like, why? That doesn't make sense. You do the 60-40 over the 70-30. They're like, why? They're giving us 70%. I'm like, oh no, they're not. You're not getting the 70. But that told me the perception of what brand new realtors think when they come into the industry. You think you do nothing and get 70? Why? It blew my mind. I'm like, oh, this starts here. They actually think that they don't have to do anything and they're going to make 70%. I was like, if I'm giving people leads, I said, I stopped giving out leads, folks. That's why I teach people to do this. And I said, the reason why I stopped giving out leads, I said, until you've been in the business 6 months or so and you haven't closed at least one deal, I don't even want to give you any leads because you don't know the value of a lead. Until you've had to struggle your backside off and close one after you found it for yourself, maybe 2 or 3 times, and then you go, oh my God, that's what it takes to get 3 deals to close, then you truly appreciate your broker or whoever else offers them to you. And that's the reason why I was like, so I won't do that. I'd rather teach you how to fish than fish for you, especially in the beginning. Because I'd rather my more seasoned agents get the leads because they're going to close them, whereas you brand new, you're not going to close them because the ones I give you are the hardest to close, unless I give you a warm handoff from Zillow Premier, where I'm paying so much that I have to have you close. But guess what? Even Zillow Premier and Op City won't allow new agents to take leads from them for that very reason. And they're like, oh, goodness. So I hope I gave them a wake-up call, but I'm wanting you guys to see, like, when I'm out and about, the very things I share with you guys is exactly what I share with everybody. You know, I want to be known as the community expert when it comes to real estate and training, you know, people. My final destination is always like, what's my legacy going to be? My legacy is how many people can I touch? I think like a little bit like the Bible. I'm not a super religious person, but like Jesus has disciples. I'm like, everyone that I touch that shares information that they learn from me with other people are like disciples. So everyone, if they think that way, you can share the word of whatever you're doing. And if people remember how you taught them or how they learned from you and they share with other people, then you have your disciples and that's your legacy. So that's where I am now. Some people get annoyed because they don't know I'm retired. And they're like, well, I don't see your name on the top of this list. I'm like, man, I've been doing this for so long. And that's not my best years as far as working were in the military. And I was the highest ranking person on the planet in my position. So I don't have anyone to compete with. I'm like, I'm sorry. When I was at that place in my life, which if you're not familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you know, it goes from food, clothing, shelter, et cetera, up to self-actualization. Self-actualization is really where you see a lot of people who are philanthropists, where they get to the point where like money just doesn't matter. And I hit that point. I'm like, yeah, I mean, I made enough money as a single guy and not having to take care of a whole lot of other stuff. I made too much money. Like I lived like a millionaire. I had literally my commanders going, how can you afford all those cars? And somebody had to pull me in and go, are you like selling drugs? I'm like, wow, that's all it takes, huh? You drive 3 nice cars. I had a Mercedes 280 SLK hardtop convertible. I had a Lexus RX 330 and another Lexus 2-door that I used to drive. And one of them just had really good gas mileage compared to the other one. So it's like, I just got a couple of cars. I owned like 5 houses, but I was like, I don't think about any of this stuff. This was just me living my life. But now, as I've gotten older, I'm like, my legacy is a little different. So I'm just sharing with you guys, like, once you get to a place where you're reaching your goals and attaining things, just keep thinking larger. How many more people can you help in a different way? And that's when I became a teacher. I'm like, yeah, I helped a whole lot of consumers. I got that. But now I can help even more consumers by touching my agents, by touching my team members, by touching other students that I train in all these different events. And in the end, that's really what I'm proud of. So with that, I won't keep anybody any longer. I know we're about 7 minutes over, but hopefully it was worth it. And of course, the next assignment is week 20. I guess I should kind of at least look at it. But I think everybody's kind of understanding what's going on. I'd have to fill it in. Oh, I talked about this, but we'll go over this. By the time you look at this again, I'll have this entire thing filled out. All you're going to do is go to UZ Marketing, have them print a sign that says sold by J Prime Realty Group, or whatever the case may be, whoever you is, and you can put that sign in the yard for someone you help sell a house. And have the listing agent remove their sign. You help sell it. You represented the buyer. You can put it in for the next 30 days and let your sign hopefully pick up some more business for you. So I'll have all that filled out by the end of by the weekend, and you can start on it by Monday and let us know what kind of results you get. Well, if you can order them fast enough. If not, it'll be the following week. All right. Anything you want to close out with, Tanya?
No, I think the sign is a great idea. I'm glad that you're going to be putting that together and for people to order them and get some more business, while we're in the slow season, just keep trucking along and getting some more leads so you can have something to close in March.
Yep. And we'll talk about that. One of the goals will be how to pick up more listings. So I'm going to switch gears for the rest of the year because I told people we're going to focus on the December to remember for new builds. We should already be doing that. So by the start of November, it's how do we start planting the seeds for listings? So just for anyone who's wondering, that's what the schedule is going to look like for the rest of the year. So, all right. Well, it's been fun once again. And you guys have a great weekend, great week, and we will see you back here the same time next week.
Yep, sounds good. Bye, guys.